Elon Musk, the billionaire entrepreneur known for his relentless pursuit of innovation, sat in his office, deep in thought. It was a rare moment of stillness in his otherwise whirlwind existence, a life defined by groundbreaking ventures in space exploration, electric vehicles, and artificial intelligence. Yet, on this particular day, his mind was preoccupied with something entirely different. A simple yet profound question had been lingering in his thoughts ever since a recent conversation with a colleague. What would happen if people didn't recognize him? How would they treat someone who seemed to have nothing? The more he pondered the idea, the more it fascinated him. He had spent years building Tesla, SpaceX, and numerous other ventures, but this experiment had nothing to do with business. It was about understanding human nature at its core. He wanted to test the authenticity of compassion, to see if people truly practiced the kindness they so often preached. Elon knew that his fame and wealth acted as a shield, influencing every interaction he had. Whether it was admiration, deference, or skepticism, people's perceptions of him were always shaped by the billions attached to his name. But what if that shield was removed? What if he was just another man on the streets, unrecognized, unnoticed, and seemingly struggling? And so, the idea evolved into a plan. He would disguise himself as a homeless man and venture into an environment where appearances dictated treatment. His choice of venue was deliberate. An upscale restaurant, a place where exclusivity and social hierarchy played significant roles. This wasn't about tricking people. It was about observing them. Would they extend a hand of kindness, or would they turn away? The challenge was irresistible, and within weeks, he was ready to step into a role unlike any he had ever played before. Elon's transformation had to be meticulous. He couldn't risk a half-hearted attempt that might get him recognized. He enlisted a small but skilled team to craft his new identity. They scoured thrift stores for worn-out clothing, faded jeans, a tattered hoodie, and sneakers that had seen better days. A makeup artist carefully altered his features, adding lines of fatigue and sunken shadows beneath his eyes. A scruffy, unkempt wig completed the look, making him virtually unrecognizable. When he stood before the mirror, he barely recognized himself. Gone was the tech mogul who graced the covers of Forbes and Time. In his place stood a man who looked like he had spent months surviving on the streets. His reflection was almost haunting. For the first time in years, he felt invisible, stripped of the identity that had defined him. It was an unsettling yet liberating sensation. He was no longer Elon Musk, the billionaire. He was just another man trying to find a place in a world that often looked away from those who had nothing. The Copper Elm was a restaurant known for its exclusivity. Located in the heart of Santa Fe, New Mexico, it was the kind of place where reservations were booked weeks in advance, and the clientele included high-profile figures, successful entrepreneurs, and socialites. The ambience exuded sophistication. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over immaculately set tables, and the soft murmur of conversation mingled with the occasional clinking of glasses. As Elon approached the grand double doors, he hesitated for the briefest moment. He was about to step into a world where, for the first time, he held no power. Taking a deep breath, he pushed open the doors and stepped inside. The effect was immediate. A subtle ripple of discomfort passed through the room. Patrons glanced up, their eyes flickering with curiosity, before quickly looking away. The staff, however, were less discreet. Their gazes lingered, scanning his appearance with poorly concealed scrutiny. He stepped cautiously onto the polished hardwood floor, aware of every scuff his worn-out sneakers made against the pristine surface. A hostess, impeccably dressed in black, approached him with a practiced smile. Yet, her professionalism wavered for just a fraction of a second as she took in his appearance. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice polite but strained. "Yes," Elon replied, keeping his tone steady but soft. "I'd like a table for one." For a moment, the hostess hesitated, glancing toward the bar, where a manager stood watching the interaction closely. Her smile faltered further. "We're fully booked tonight," she said quickly, her eyes flicking to a row of empty tables. Elon caught the glance but said nothing. He simply waited, letting the silence stretch between them. From across the room, a young server named Sophia noticed the exchange. She had only been working at the Copper Elm for a few months, saving up for culinary school. Something about the man's demeanor struck her. It wasn't pity that made her take notice. It was curiosity. There was something about him that felt different from the usual drifters who occasionally wandered in, seeking shelter from the cold. "I can seat him," Sophia called out before the hostess could dismiss him entirely. The room went quiet for a brief moment. All eyes were on her. The manager frowned but said nothing. Elon offered Sophia a faint smile as she led him to a small table near the kitchen doors. It wasn't the prime spot, but it was a seat, and for that, he was grateful. As Elon settled into his seat, he felt the weight of the room's judgment pressing down on him. Glances were exchanged, hushed whispers floated through the air, and the atmosphere around him thickened with discomfort. He didn't need to strain to overhear snippets of conversation. "What's management thinking, letting someone like that in here?" A man at a nearby table muttered to his companion. "This is going to scare off the regulars," another server whispered. Elon remained composed, his expression neutral, but inside, he was carefully cataloging every reaction. This was exactly why he had embarked on this experiment, to see how people treated those they deemed insignificant. Sophia returned with menu, placing it in front of him with the same care she would for any other guest. "Take your time," she said warmly, ignoring the murmurs that had begun to rise around her. Elon flipped through the menu, observing the people around him just as much as they were observing him. Some diners glanced at him with curiosity, while others looked openly disdainful. He could see the discomfort in their eyes, as if his mere presence disrupted the polished, exclusive atmosphere they had paid for. When Sophia came back to take his order, Elon decided on something simple: soup and bread. "That's all?" she asked, surprised. "That's all," he confirmed. Sophia didn't question him further. She disappeared into the kitchen, leaving Elon alone with his thoughts and the silent judgment of the room. If there was one thing he'd already confirmed, it was that appearances dictated treatment far more than most people were willing to admit. Sophia returned a few minutes later, carefully setting down a steaming bowl of tomato bisque and a small basket of bread. She placed the dishes in front of him with the same grace and professionalism she displayed with any other customer. "Enjoy your meal," she said, her smile genuine. Elon met her gaze. "Thank you," he said, his voice sincere. Sophia's kindness stood in stark contrast to the cold indifference of the rest of the staff and diners. She had no reason to go out of her way for him, no expectation of recognition or reward. She was simply a good person treating another human being with dignity. As he ate, Elon continued to observe the room. This was only the beginning, and already he had seen more than he expected. And soon, the true revelation of the night would unfold. Elon Musk, known for his brilliance and wealth, decided to conduct a silent social experiment. He disguised himself as an unkempt man, clad in tattered clothes, hair uncombed, and face deliberately shadowed with grime. The goal? To observe human nature in its rawest form, to see how people reacted to someone they perceived as a homeless, down-and-out individual. The setting was a lavish, high-end restaurant known for attracting society's elite. Musk, without uttering a word, stepped through the doors, his demeanor humble, his presence starkly contrasting with the extravagance around him. The first thing he noticed was the way people glanced at him, some with pity, others with mild curiosity, and many with outright disdain. Conversations halted momentarily as guests exchanged looks, silently questioning how someone like him had wandered into their world of polished silverware and chandeliers. The whispers began, a hushed yet cutting murmur that slithered across the room like a cold draft. The host at the entrance hesitated, glancing over Musk's disheveled form before putting on a forced smile. "I'm sorry, sir, but we have a strict dress code. Perhaps you'd be more comfortable elsewhere." The words, though polite in tone, carried an undeniable undercurrent of rejection. A waiter, balancing a tray of delicate wine glasses, furrowed his brows but continued his work, though his eyes lingered a moment too long on Musk's ragged appearance. The wealthier patrons, adorned in designer suits and dazzling jewelry, made no effort to conceal their discomfort. One woman audibly scoffed, clutching her handbag a little tighter. A man in an expensive tailored suit shook his head, muttering something about the decline of standards. Musk remained silent, keenly absorbing every reaction. He wasn't just observing their words and gestures, but the essence of their attitudes. The unspoken belief that wealth equated to worth and lack of refinement equated to insignificance. The harsh truth, Judgment, whispers, and disdain fill the air. As Musk took a hesitant step toward an empty table, the tension in the air thickened. A waiter briskly approached. "Sir, I'm afraid that table is reserved," he said curtly. It wasn't. Musk had been watching, and no one had been led to that table in the past half hour. He turned toward another open seat at the bar, but the bartender barely concealed his grimace. "Can I help you?" The words came sharp, more like a warning than a genuine inquiry. The implicit message was clear. "You don't belong here." The murmurs grew louder. "How did he even get in?" someone whispered. "Probably looking for a handout." Another voice sneered. Elon Musk felt the weight of judgment bearing down on him. It was suffocating, oppressive. He had expected some level of rejection, but witnessing the sheer depth of bias firsthand was something else entirely. People were so quick to assess his worth based purely on appearances. It was a stark revelation, one that exposed the dark underbelly of human nature. A group at a nearby table erupted into laughter, their conversation dripping with mockery. Maybe he's an eccentric billionaire conducting some sort of experiment. One of them joked, prompting a round of amused chuckles. The irony was almost too much to bear. This was the brutal reality of judgment. It came swiftly, without thought, without mercy. For many in that restaurant, humanity was an accessory worn only when convenient. The moment someone didn't fit their mold of acceptability, they were cast aside, forgotten, and ridiculed. Sophia's integrity, choosing kindness despite social pressure. In the midst of this cruelty, one person stood apart. Sophia, a young waitress, had been silently observing. She had witnessed the sneers, the dismissive gestures, the way everyone recoiled from the man they deemed unworthy of their space. Unlike her colleagues, she felt an ache in her heart, a sense of injustice simmering beneath her professional demeanor. Sophia took a deep breath and approached Musk with a warm, genuine smile. "Good evening, sir. Can I get you anything?" Her voice was kind, devoid of the condescension dripping from others' words. A hush fell over the immediate area. The head waiter shot her a warning glare. The bartender scoffed, shaking his head. The wealthy patrons exchanged looks of disbelief. "Sophia, don't encourage him," another waiter hissed under his breath. "He shouldn't be here." But Sophia stood firm. "He has just as much right to be treated with respect as anyone else," she said firmly. Then, turning back to Musk, she asked again, "Would you like a menu?" Musk, still silent, nodded. For the first time that evening, someone had acknowledged him, not as an inconvenience, not as a problem to be removed, but as a human being. The response in the crowd was immediate and venomous. "Unbelievable," someone muttered. "This place is going downhill," another grumbled. Yet Sophia did not waver. She handed Musk a menu, her hand steady, her conviction unshaken. The big reveal: Elon Musk removes his disguise, shocking everyone. After observing enough, Musk knew it was time. Slowly, he reached up, peeling away the layers of his disguise. The tangled wig came off, revealing his familiar face. He wiped away the grime, straightened his posture, and met the eyes of those who had ridiculed him with an unreadable expression. Gasps rippled through the restaurant like a shockwave. Mouths fell open. Forks clattered onto plates. The color drained from several faces as realization set in. "Oh my God!" someone whispered. The same people who had moments ago treated him with scorn now scrambled to adjust their expressions. The bartender, who had barely concealed his distaste earlier, suddenly broke into a nervous smile. The head waiter, who had been so eager to dismiss him, stepped forward in an obsequious manner. "Mr. Musk, if we had known." But Musk raised a hand, silencing them. His piercing gaze swept the room, taking in the guilt-ridden faces, the people now desperate to rewrite their actions. Sophia stood quietly by his side, unfazed. Unlike the others, she had no need to change her demeanor. She had treated him with kindness all along. A lesson in humanity, confronting the restaurant with their biases. Musk's voice, when he finally spoke, was calm but firm. "Tonight, I came here not as Elon Musk, the billionaire, but as an ordinary man, and the way I was treated speaks volumes." The room remained silent, the weight of shame pressing down on those who had so quickly dismissed him. It's easy to show kindness when you believe someone is important, but true character is revealed in how you treat those you think can do nothing for you. His words hung in the air like a mirror, reflecting the ugliness of the evening's events. There was no rebuttal, no excuse that could justify what had just transpired. Turning to Sophia, he gave her a grateful nod. "Thank you for reminding me that goodness still exists." Then, without another word, he walked out, leaving the restaurant's elite drowning in the bitter taste of their own prejudice. That night, the most valuable lesson wasn't about wealth, status, or power. It was about humanity, about the choice to be kind, even when no one is watching, a life-changing reward. Sophia receives a $50,000 check for her compassion. Sophia had always been the type of person to give without expecting anything in return. She worked as a waitress in a small family-owned restaurant, known more for its cozy atmosphere than its gourmet offerings. However, Sophia had a heart that could not be measured in the same way that success was typically quantified, by dollars and cents. One chilly afternoon, a regular customer, a businessman in his mid-50s, came in looking distressed. His face was lined with worry, his suit a little too crisp for such a modest establishment. He seemed out of place, and Sophia noticed. Instead of brushing him off or simply offering a mechanical service, she took the time to ask how his day had been. That simple act of kindness was all it took. The businessman, who had often been curt and distant, began to open up to her about his struggles. His company was on the brink of bankruptcy, and he was wrestling with a multitude of challenges. Sophia, with her patient listening and compassionate demeanor, offered words of encouragement and solace. She didn't pretend to have the answers, but she gave him the one thing he needed most: understanding. As the days went on, Sophia's presence in his life became a bright spot in an otherwise dark time. He continued to visit the restaurant, often sitting by himself, reflecting, and gradually pulling himself together. What Sophia didn't know was that he made a promise to himself. If he managed to turn his life around, he would reward the kindness that had been shown to him in his darkest hours. Weeks passed, and eventually, the businessman's situation began to improve. His company saw a turnaround, and he made good on his promise. One fateful day, he walked into the restaurant and, after a casual conversation with Sophia, handed her a check for $50,000. Sophia's breath caught in her throat. She had never expected anything in return, but the gesture was overwhelming. This money, a direct result of her own selflessness, would change the course of her life forever. Ripples of reflection. The restaurant and its patrons face a hard truth. As news of Sophia's windfall spread, the small restaurant became a place of reflection. People began to wonder, what was it about Sophia's simple, everyday actions that had made such an impression on someone who could have anything in the world? The patrons, who had witnessed Sophia's consistent kindness and warmth, now saw her in a new light. The restaurant, which had once been a place for just a quick meal or an after-work drink, transformed into something much more profound. It became a microcosm of a larger truth that people had long forgotten: the power of human connection. For years, society had become obsessed with fast-paced life, status, and wealth. But here was an example of how one person's compassion could create ripples that reached far beyond the confines of a restaurant. Patrons began to look at each other differently, too. Instead of the usual small talk about the weather or sports, the conversations took on a more genuine tone. The regulars started to acknowledge the importance of empathy and kindness in their own lives. They shared their stories of struggle and triumph, realizing that just like Sophia had shown them, kindness was a language that transcended all barriers, including wealth. The restaurant's owner, a man who had been reluctant to change the pace of his business, also began to reconsider his approach. He had always viewed the restaurant as just a means to an end, making money and serving food. But Sophia's impact on his customers had opened his eyes to something bigger: community. The place was no longer just a business. It was a haven for people seeking connection, understanding, and comfort. The story spreads, news of the experiment goes viral. It wasn't long before Sophia's story spread far, beyond the walls of the restaurant. One of the regulars, a journalist, had witnessed the event firsthand and wrote a heartfelt article about Sophia's act of kindness. What was initially intended as a small local piece exploded into a viral sensation. News outlets from around the world began picking up the story, intrigued by the humble waitress who had changed the course of a businessman's life with a simple act of compassion. The story was a breath of fresh air in a world that often seemed to be dominated by negativity and self-interest. People from all walks of life shared the story on social media, and it became a symbol of the power of kindness in an increasingly fragmented world. The ripple effect didn't stop there. People began to write letters, send messages of support, and share their own personal stories of kindness. Some credited Sophia's story with inspiring them to be more generous, while others saw it as a reminder of the importance of compassion in a world that often seemed more focused on competition than cooperation. Sophia became a symbol of hope, a reminder that even the smallest gestures could make a world of difference. As the story spread, it sparked a larger conversation about empathy, kindness, and the human need for connection. Sophia's new path, a bright future in culinary school. Sophia, despite receiving such a large financial gift, knew that it wasn't just the money that had changed her life. What mattered most to her was the impact she had made on others. Yet, the unexpected windfall opened up new possibilities for her future. Having always dreamed of becoming a chef, Sophia saw this as her opportunity to make her passion a reality. She had never been able to afford the high tuition fees of a culinary school, but now, with the financial freedom that $50,000 provided, she could pursue her dreams without hesitation. She enrolled in one of the most prestigious culinary programs in the country, ready to immerse herself in the art of cooking. As she walked into her first class, she realized just how far she had come. The shy, soft-spoken waitress who had once taken orders was now on her way to becoming a skilled chef. While culinary school presented new challenges, Sophia's unwavering work ethic and dedication to kindness set her apart. Her classmates were drawn to her authenticity, and her instructors were impressed by her drive and humility. Sophia quickly became a beacon of inspiration, showing that even those from humble beginnings could achieve greatness when fueled by passion and compassion. The story of Sophia's transformation was not just about financial success, but about following one's heart, remaining grounded, and staying true to one's values. As she honed her skills in the kitchen, she knew that her story would continue to inspire others to believe that a brighter future was always within reach. A lasting impact. The restaurant changes, and people reevaluate their actions. In the years that followed, the restaurant underwent a quiet transformation. The once small, family-owned diner became known not just for its food, but for its culture of compassion. Sophia's story had created a ripple effect that resonated in ways no one had anticipated. The restaurant's owner, inspired by the kindness shown by Sophia, began to offer cooking classes for the community. These classes weren't about turning out professional chefs, but about building relationships and creating an inclusive space where everyone could come together. The patrons no longer just came to eat. They came to connect, to share, and to be a part of something bigger than themselves. Even the staff felt the shift. They no longer saw their roles as just jobs. They were part of a larger mission to serve others, to lift people up, and create an environment of respect and support. They learned that serving food was not just about nourishment. It was about nourishing the soul. The impact of Sophia's story had fundamentally changed how the restaurant operated, and in doing so, it became a symbol of the power of community and empathy. A message to the world: true kindness transcends wealth and status. As Sophia continued to grow in her culinary career, her message remained unchanged. True kindness transcends wealth and status. Her story was not about the money she had received, but about the relationships she had built, the lives she had touched, and the way in which she had inspired others to embrace empathy and compassion. In a world often defined by material success, Sophia's life proved that the greatest rewards didn't come from accumulating wealth, but from giving of oneself. True kindness was priceless. It didn't matter how much money you had or where you came from. It was the way you made others feel that defined your worth. Sophia's journey was a testament to the idea that one small act of kindness could change the course of a life. Her story was a beacon for people everywhere to reevaluate their actions, to reconsider the importance of compassion, and to realize that no matter who you are, you can make a difference in the world. As her story continued to inspire people, Sophia knew that her journey wasn't just about her success. It was about a larger message that the world needed to hear. Kindness, after all, was the greatest gift anyone could give.